everyone, my name is Chelsea Lambusta. I'm the Associate Director for Housing Services. This is my senior year at Virginia Tech, so my fourth year starting out here, and I'm super excited to have you all join this session and learn about your second year housing options. Here's our contact information. You can find us in Newhall West. We're in Suite 144. You are also welcome to email us at housing@vt.edu or give us a call at 540-231-6205, and someone from our staff can answer any of the questions that you may have about housing. There are a few different options and ways to be on campus for your second year. Some of those will be living learning programs, Oak Lane, which is our fraternity and sorority life, VTCC, Corps of Cadets, or the HAP, which is the housing application process. There is a session about living learning programs I would highly recommend you to check out this weekend. You can also find that on our website. We have various different living learning programs that are major specific, interest specific, and multi-generational. Those are our res colleges. I would highly recommend you check them out if you're not in a living learning program this year and you are interested in one for next year. You're able to apply to all of the living learning programs if you're not in them this year, except Galileo, Hypatia, Orion, and those students do not accept students that do not have the first year experience with them. But the rest of them are completely open and would love to have you as a second year student. In Oak Lane, we have both fraternities and sororities. We have 17 organizations out in Oak Lane. If you've not experienced Oak Lane or witnessed it, I would encourage you to go check it out. It is on campus housing. It's over by the duck pond, by the golf course. You can drive back there, or you're welcome to ride the BT. The BT does have a bus stop out in Oak Lane. If you are in the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, your housing offers will go through the Corps of Cadets. So what happens is I will email every Corps of Cadet student that is currently in the Corps that is not about to graduate and give them their housing offer. If you are interested in staying in the Corps of Cadets, you'll just complete that housing offer through the STARS portal. So you'll select the link in the email, you'll complete the housing contract by the deadline, and you'll be good to go. If you are currently in the Corps of Cadets and you are not wanting to return to the Corps of Cadets, you will need to email my office at housing@vt.edu so we can remove your core housing offer so you have the ability to apply for a living learning program or complete the Oak Lane housing process or go through the HAP, the housing application process, our lottery. So the HAP, the housing lottery, that occurs at the beginning of the spring semester. So the HAP for this upcoming year is January 19th through the 22nd, 2021. You will get the results on whether you get a spot in the HAP on January 30th, and then our contract deadline for those that get offers will be February 14th because we want you to commit your love to housing and tell us how much you love us and you want to stay with us for another year, so we always do February 14th. In the HAP, we have two different types of offers. We have a standard offer, which means that you have a standard housing contract. We would love to have you back. You're guaranteed housing. You will be able to physically choose where you live on campus next year, so our returners that get a standard offer actually choose their housing first before incoming first year students. Another type of offer we have is a conditional. Conditional means that you are guaranteed housing. You will have housing if you complete that housing contract, but there are conditions to it. Those conditions are that you will not choose your housing. So we will place you at the very end of the process and place you in a room or a bed that is available at that end. So it kind of helps us fill in the gaps. A conditional also might end up in a lounge or a triple or an RA roommate. That is another piece of that conditional offer. If you get a conditional offer, it is outlined in that offer all the different conditions that you would be agreeing to. But if you are looking for a way to be guaranteed housing, conditional and standard, both of those will provide you on-campus housing for next year. In regards to the HAP, you'll get an email from me in January and it'll tell you about how to apply. You'll complete that process through the STARS portal. As you click the link, you're going to put yourself in the HAP process and hit submit. It's very easy to put yourself in the HAP. If you put yourself in the HAP and you get a spot and then you decide you don't want to live on campus, that's also A-okay. You're just not going to complete the housing contract by February 14th. You'll just let that offer expire or email my office and say, hey, I don't want to live on campus for next year. Can you remove my offer? We'll remove it and then we might give it to someone that is a conditional and upgrade them, or we'll give it to someone that maybe ends up on the wait list. RA. If you're interested in being RA, this is another wonderful opportunity to be able to return to campus for next year. You get to work for Housing and Residence Life, live in the residence halls, and help our incoming students be integrated into the Virginia Tech community. It's a wonderful opportunity. Our RA's room is completely covered in the telecom fee, so housing and telecom fee are paid for, and we pay RAs through a stipend. This year that is different than last year. Previously, students were required to attend an information session about how to become an RA before they could apply. that is no longer a requirement of the process. So our application opens on October 1st and it will close on October 22nd at 11:59 p.m. But if you're interested in learning more about the RA process in between that time period, we're going to have 2 informational sessions that will be held through Zoom. I will email all of campus and tell everyone about these optional Zoom opportunities to learn more about the RA role. Those will occur on October 6th and October 14th at 7 p.m. Again, you'll get that through email and you can click on it and attend, learn more, see if being an RA is a great fit for you. It is a wonderful leadership opportunity that you can add to your resume and use those skills in your future, whether it's communication skills, conflict resolution, and various things like that. Again, the application opens on October 1st, closes on October 22nd at 11:59. After the application process, we have an optional interview preparation session on November 2nd at 7 p.m. And then we will be having Zoom interviews from November 5th through 7th. So students that are offered an RA position after the interview process, you are given the offer of the position. So you would accept that or decline it. If you accept it, you then will sign your housing contract right after that and then secure your housing for on campus for next year. We would love to have you on campus next year. Please think about applying for a Living Learning program through Oak Lane, Greek Life, or for HAP. We are opening CID next fall, so fall 2021 CID, which is over on Kent Street if you haven't seen the construction. It will be open. It's going to be a 596 bed facility. Please think about living on campus next year. We'd love to have you, and have a good day.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Grew. I'm the Director of Housing and Residence Life here at Virginia Tech. And I'm going to introduce my colleague here, Nikki Smith.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nikki Smith. I'm the Assistant Director for Housing Services here at Tech.
So Nikki and I are here to just answer questions that are coming in about second year housing. And we've got actually some questions that are coming in on a variety of topics. Just one, make sure in the video that you're watching is the link for the questions. And so you can submit any questions and we will try and take them live here and answer as many of them as we can. So I think I'll just go ahead and get started. We've got a variety of topics hitting. So one of the first that came in are what are the plans for the spring semester? I am flattered that you have that much trust in me. I'll just say I don't yet quite know. As I think most folks know, we are planning to depopulate for the most part on November 21st. So actually later this week, we're going to be sending out information to all of our students about that process and how to register or request an exception to remain on campus, but that'll come out this week. And our standard plan is to open up for MLK Day or right before MLK Day. And so that could change depending on how things progress, but that's what I know right now. So Nikki, can you answer, there's a question, if a student is going virtual this semester and wants to live on campus in the spring semester, what does that process look like for them?
Right. So I would want to clarify first what folks mean by going virtual. So if a student has been released from their housing contract, like they have requested release through the StarRise portal and have been granted that release from their contract, then when we release someone from their contract, that's for the whole period of the contract, both fall and spring semesters. So someone who has gone virtual through contract release does not currently have a contract with Virginia Tech. And so what we would say to that is that currently the spring 2021 waitlist is live on the StarRise portal. When students log in, there's a bar across the top with several options, one of which includes the housing contract option. And that through the housing contract option is where they can find the waitlist for spring. And that's what students would need to do if they want to request spring housing and they have been released from their housing contract. We have, as I've been telling folks as they've been released, as Sean just mentioned, we don't know what spring looks like. So, my honest guidance for folks is that we want everyone we possibly can have living with us. We love to have you. We love seeing you. We love the vibrancy you bring to the community. And so we will do everything we can to make as many offers as we can, but we have no way of knowing right now how many that will be. And also for folks that have been released, if we do offer a contract and they accept it, we cannot make guarantees that they're going to go back into the same building and room that they may have been originally assigned to in the fall. I just am a big believer in setting out the parameters so folks know how to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Nikki. Let's see. And I know this was on the video, Nikki, but can you remind folks when that begins?
Absolutely. So HAP will begin when folks come back from the winter break. So January 19th is when HAP will open, and it will close a couple of days later. It is a very short time frame, but trust me, it's plenty of time because it does not take very long. You log on, there'll be links there, you click it, and it's a matter of seconds to a minute to get yourself logged on for the HAP. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump because there's a conditional standard contract that's kind of related, and just go ahead and take that on as well. Chelsea did mention that we have a standard contract and the conditional contract. So a standard contract is one in which the intent is that the student makes their own room selection. So as your students would have experienced over the course of the summer, standard contract holders get a time slot to go in and pick their room, and then they go in directly to the StarRisk portal and they make their own decision about their room. Conditional folks also still have a guaranteed spot. It's not that it's not conditional whether or not you have a spot, it's conditional where you get placed. And so for folks who are conditional contract holders, we will place them near to the end of the process. So as Chelsea mentioned, they may be in a lounge, they could be an RA roommate. It just really depends on where we have open spaces at that point in the process, but they are both housing contracts.
Great, thank you, Nikki. One of the questions coming in is if we sign a contract for next year, will we also be signing the health and well-being commitment for next year? For folks that might not be familiar with that, so that was essentially the additional protections in the age of COVID regarding mask wearing and social distancing and just the things that we need to do to stay healthy. I couldn't 100% respond in the affirmative, but I believe we will have a health and well-being commitment for next year as well. Certainly could change just a little bit based on what we learn about things that work and things that we need to change. But I would anticipate that will be part of the contract going forward. One of the questions coming in is, what is the risk of a sophomore waiting for the housing lottery results in February when leases are being secured for apartments in October? Will they likely get a spot, or I think end up far away from campus? So i.e. if they couldn't get a housing contract. Nikki, what does your crystal ball say on that?
Right. My crystal ball says, well, really, this is one of the times when knowing from what our colleagues have told us from off-campus housing is really helpful. And I do know that they have a presentation as well that I encourage folks to listen to, because I think they can also speak to this in a very direct way. We found that to not be as big of a challenge. I mean, obviously, leasing folks there, they need to fill their spaces just as much as everyone else does. And so they are absolutely going to make things available as early as possible. And they are going to really encourage folks to apply. But that does not mean that stock is not going to be available throughout the time frame. In my own experience in the last year or so, working with students who are deciding between on and off campus housing, I have seen students ask us for a housing contract, and then the very next day say, never mind, I just signed a lease off campus. And this was in July and August. So that doesn't mean it's not necessarily a stressful process for that student because they're making this decision kind of last minute, but I do know it is possible and it's available. So I don't want to encourage anyone to buy into a lot of hype right now. I think you need to make the overall decision that you think is best for your student about where they really want to be next year, and go and work through that, and always have a backup plan.
Yeah, I would just second that. We've got some great partners across the university and across Blacksburg regarding off-campus housing, but certainly the Virginia Tech off-campus housing office, they're fantastic. They do have a presentation today, and you can also visit their website. They partner with apartment communities and spaces around town where you can kind of view and see what's available and what might be convenient. And again, we have some great partners off campus as well, but I think it is important to note, they're incentivized to try and get leases early. They know what our process is as well. And I would just kind of second Nikki's comment that while there might feel like there's pressure to get things done as soon as possible, our conversations with students would indicate that there's still quite a bit of space that's out there that students can go and find and access. So let's see. Nikki, I may ask this one for you. Do current freshman LLC residents get any priority in staying in their residence hall their sophomore year?
Yeah, so I would again encourage folks to look at the LLP presentation from our colleagues because they'll have some much more specific information. Really, how I want folks to think about this question is that the goal of the LLP is that it's an engaged, vibrant community, and it's really about the level of engagement that your student has with that community. And so I don't know how your student's operating within that community, but if they are engaged and they love it and they're connecting with folks and they are really putting an effort into being a part of the community, then absolutely that community is going to want to have them back. Communities are trying to build strong communities, and having really engaged residents is critical to that. So if your student is really showing and demonstrating how much they are invested, I would be a no-brainer for a program director to want to have that kind of energy back in the community. I think at the same time, if your student has been disengaged, if they have not really made an effort to connect with the community, and if they seem unhappy there, that doesn't mean that they're at a disadvantage, but it also may mean that the director may have some reasonable questions about, is the student coming back because they want to be part of my community, or are they coming back because they just want a place to live? And so I think it's very much about the effort that your student puts into the application and their involvement in the community.
Yeah, and I'll just put in a little bit of a plug there again about living learning programs here on campus. So, if you're not familiar, there's a lot. Chelsea shared some information. We've got whole websites that are devoted to it and some presentations that are actually taking place this weekend. But if your student or you are currently not a part of a living learning program, I'd really encourage you to check those out. So we have over 17 programs at the universities. We have 2 new ones that are starting next year as well. That'll be in Pritchard Hall. Those are going to be the interfaith community that's run through the Dean of Students office, and then a first gen community as well that's also run through Dean of Students office. So we've got some new programs that are going to be wonderful. And I would just say that there's a lot of great data about students' experience once they're in a living learning program. So they tend to be more engaged, tend to have higher GPAs, all the things that we say is important about living in housing. It's just another connection point. That also includes our 3 residential colleges, both the Honors College at East Ambler Johnson, West Residential College at West Ambler Johnson, and then O'Shaughnessy, the Leadership and Social Change Residential College. Those all have faculty principals that live in. It's a pretty awesome way to connect with your instructors in a different way and experience kind of a really just great experience with folks who are really committed to learning at Tech. So I couldn't encourage you more to take a look at that. And that, that also has a kind of more direct reflection on being able to get into housing as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that was something I was going to emphasize as we wrap that particular question up. Like, your student has far more control over the quality of their application to return to a living community than they do the true random chance of the lottery. And so I think it really behooves students to take a hard look at what they might be interested in and really put their best effort forward into those living learning program applications.
So Nikki and I have used a lot of lingo, and there's some questions coming in on some of the abbreviations that we're using. So there's a question coming in. What is HAP? Is that the housing contract? So can you kind of differentiate those for folks, Nikki?
Absolutely. So HAP is the housing application process. That's the name of the process by which we use to offer out the opportunity to ask for a housing contract to students who are not returning through the LLP process, who are not returning through the core, who are not RAs, and who are not on Oak Lane. So that is just our general assignment population folks who want to come back and live with us next year. And that is the process that begins on January 19th. It is a true random chance lottery. There is nothing anybody can do to raise or lower their opportunity to receive a contract through the HAP. So you don't even need to ask that question. It's just, that's what it is. And so at the end of the HAP, students will get offers. And so, yes, the standard and conditional offer, those are the direct outcomes of the lottery. So there will be some students who get standard contracts, and there will be some offers, and there'll be some students who get conditional contract offers as an outcome of the lottery. Students who do not get contract offers will automatically be placed on a fall 2021 wait list. So they do not need to do anything additional if they have entered the HAP on time.
I'll take one of the questions that's coming in. You know, what are a student's chances as a sophomore to live on campus next year? You know, the great news that I would say, and Chelsea highlighted a little bit in the video, and you can actually see it on our website and kind of see the construction live, is the Creativity and Innovation District. So that's a 596 bed facility. Will also be a residential college. And so that's going to be, again, a great addition to our housing project. It is on time. And so we do expect to have that online here this summer, which we're on the train to, and it's quickly approaching. So, you know, I certainly can't say that you are guaranteed housing next year. I'd never be able to say that, but I would say that you have a very good chance. One, for sure, if you choose to engage in an LLP. So that's a great opportunity. And as Nikki indicated, you have more control over your assignment and where you'll be. You know, if you go into the HAP, if you're going in and again, Nikki indicated that's a pure random chance lottery. Yes, it's a chance, right? So it's not a guarantee in that process. I do think, based on the numbers that I know, I think we will make our way through most of the people that apply through HAP and be able to issue them a contract. But that's always a reflection on how many new students might be joining at Tech, you know, retention rates, deferrals. I like to say there's an art and a science to how housing assignments works. And Nikki and Chelsea do a really great job kind of balancing those. But we do everything we can to get you a spot on campus. So really our portfolio and our contract status changes every day and usually multiple times a day. You know, for instance, last year, we did have several folks that were kind of in waitlist groups, but we were able to get through almost all of them last year. And really by the time fall rolled around, just about everybody who wanted a contract had one at that point. So again, can change several times on a daily basis. And so always just check with us if you have questions, because we're always here to help. Let's see. Nikki, can a student apply to both HAP and an LLC? How does that work?
Sure. So these processes don't occur at the same time. And I think that's important to kind of understand. So the LLC application process for next year will be kicking off very shortly in October. And so students will be applying for LLCs and hearing back those results before we leave for the winter break. And so if your student applies for and it gets into an LLC and they accept their contract, then there is no need to do HAP. That process will be over before we ever get to the HAP process. So a student who either doesn't apply for an LLC or applies and is not accepted, absolutely could then put themselves in the HAP, but they are not concurrent processes, if that makes more sense. They occur sequentially. The LLC process first, and it completely wraps up, including all contracts being signed before we ever open the HAP, because actually the LLC numbers are part of our calculations for how many contracts we can offer through HAP. And so it is very important to us to wrap that up ahead of time. Does that help?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, and hopefully that clears some things up for folks. So, Nikki, will we, for the folks that aren't in an LLC right now, how would they know how to apply to an LLC? Will we be kind of putting out some information about that process?
So that LLP information goes out to all of the current campus residents, and it will be going out very shortly in the next couple of weeks. And so like you don't have to have some sort of secret in with an LLP to hear about the application process. Everyone will be notified about it and given the time frame, because the programs are really you know, as Chelsea mentioned in the video, most of the programs do have upperclassmen returning, and they love to have those folks back. And so we are going to make sure that every student is aware, current resident student is aware, so they have that opportunity to apply.
That's great. So again, quick recap of that. So the LLP process is really going to kick off here in just a few days, and we will be sending information out to all students about that. The HAP process, or the lottery, that is going to happen after students return in the spring semester. So again, as Nikki kind of indicated, kind of being able to choose your own fate a little bit. You have the ability to do that starting as early as next week, really kicking that off. So yeah, get excited and definitely check out our LLP webpage on the Housing and Residence Life site. Excuse me. It gives a lot of great information about just LLPs and the process. Nikki, can you review the deadlines again?
Absolutely. So HAP will open on the 19th of January. It will close that following Friday at 5 o'clock. And that is a hard deadline. That 5 o'clock deadline, we will set up our system such that when it ticks over to 5 o'clock, that system will automatically close itself off, and it will start putting any sort of late folks onto a wait list. And so it is, like I said, it's a fairly short window, about 4 days, but it is certainly sufficient time to get in and do what may take you maybe 2 minutes to accomplish. And so we just want to make sure that folks are on top of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nikki. So yes, it does happen within a constrained period of time, but the HAP is very quick. You'll do a single sign-on, you'll get into StarRes, you complete the application, and you're done really, really quickly. Every year we have some folks who put it off and forget, and then they're submitting stuff after the deadline. And as we talk about, being able to kind of control your own fate here, that's the group that will be they'll be the least likely to find housing on campus in that situation. So again, really make sure that you and have your student complete that process. I would just tell you right away. And on the 19th, again, it's just going to take a couple minutes. Nikki, how will they know if they have completed the process correctly?
Yeah, so they should get a confirmation email. And they can also log back on and see that their status is there. So we do most things that we do in the StarRes portal when a student has successfully completed it results in an automatic confirmation email. So it's in some ways hard to not know that you finished it, but folks manage it.
Well, thank you. Here's a good question. Can you choose a roommate if you're accepted through?
If our folks who hold standard contracts, so those are the folks who get time slots to select their own room, yes, because they have a time slot, they're making their own selection, which means they can also create a roommate pair, much as some of your students have done early this year when they selected spaces. That remains the same. Folks who hold conditional contracts, we cannot guarantee that because we are hand placing those students. So we may not be able to manage roommate requests in that regard. I'm never going to tell a student they can't tell me their preference. I'm always going to be honest about whether or not I can accommodate that. And so our conditional contract holders will have much less control over where they end up. We will be placing those folks. And so they may not be able to be placed with the roommate that they want.
And here's maybe a question that goes along with that, Nikki. Can students request a suite as part of a group, i.e. for students who want to live either with each other or close to each other?
Right. So the largest group that can be formed is a roommate pair. And so students, what we recommend as folks are coming in first years or as upperclassmen, is that you coordinate with each other and you talk about your preferences. And so no, we do not allow a group of 4 people to go in and claim a whole suite or parts of a suite. What we would say is that it would be really smart for folks to look at, okay, we really want to live in Pedro Yates. And so we know that our preferences are these 2 suites in Pedro Yates. And so folks will get time slots, and you'll know what those time slots are in advance. And they are based on the order in which you signed your housing contract. And so the strategic thing would be to take the 2 folks who sign earliest and have them be the group leaders for your pairs, and then work together to coordinate. We'll pick this room, and then when you get it, you're like, yep, we got this room. You guys pick the one next door. And so I think it's a little bit of strategery going on there, but no, it's a roommate pair, not a roommate suite.
Nikki's pulling out some old school Saturday Night Live wordplay here, so big props on that one. So I'll answer this question. If you get conditional contract for a lounge, is your cost less since you don't have things like a sink? So I'll say first on that, right now we are currently not using lounges for occupancy. Again, can't necessarily see too far into my crystal ball and say whether we will or won't do that next year. I mean, we do have rooms both with sinks and without sinks, and so the rate for those are clearly published on our housing website, and so you can kind of see those as well. It also lists the features of those rooms. We've got a fantastic marketing coordinator who's done a great job kind of delineating all the different features of our spaces. So you can go in there and kind of see what options are available at each type of facility. Again, lounges, I can't really say whether we would or would not use them next year as residential spaces. I can just tell you we're not currently doing that right now. Kind of an extension of that is if you're an RA, should you expect that you will not have your own room? So that's, that's kind of tied to the last question. That's a thing we've done in the past with RA roommates. This year, RAs don't have roommates. And really, RA roommates tend to start out the year together, but then even if we are using roommates, usually by second semester, we have moved most of those folks into other assignments. But again, that kind of goes into our overall calculation of how many contracts we can offer and all those types of things. So, again, can't answer either of those questions 100% definitively, but you can kind of see our thinking a little bit on some of the things that we do. Let's see, Nikki, if a student applies to HAP under a standard contract, does the lottery mean there's a chance they may not get a standard contract? I'm confused by standard being guaranteed, but also calling it a lottery.
Sure, and I apologize if we confused you guys. Sorry about that. When a student applies to HAP, they're not applying for a particular kind of contract. They are just applying for a contract. And so what happens as a result of the HAP is that we will calculate how many standard offers we can make, which means that the student gets to make their own room selection, and how many conditional offers that we can make, which means we're going to be hand placing those folks at the end of the process. So students, when they apply for HAP, are not going to be asked what kind of contract they're applying for, because that's not a decision that they will be making. They're applying for a contract. Getting either type of contract, either standard or conditional, is you have a contract with Virginia Tech. So you have been told that you are getting housing. It's a matter of how the placement occurs, is that really the true difference between standard and conditional.
That's great. Thank you, Nikki. And so maybe I'll just try and summarize a couple of these processes together so that everybody can maybe get the best handle on how things work. So the first process that's happening is the LLP process. So that will begin here in just a few days. So again, all students are going to know about that. They've got the opportunity to apply for an LLP, may get selected by an LLP, and then they'd be assigned just based on where that building is. Say you chose not to apply for an LLP, or you were not selected after you did apply. Then you're going into the HAP process. So the HAP process is going to start on January 19th. It'll conclude on the 22nd. So when you enter HAP, housing, Nikki and Chelsea and some of our great partners, we're making the decision on how many people we can house in that situation. So there's really kind of a couple different outcomes for that. One, you could be issued a standard contract, which, as Nikki indicated, you're going to get to form roommate groups, choose your own assignment, that type of thing. Then we're going to have folks that'll be issued a conditional contract. So you do still have a space in that situation. However, you're towards the end of the group, and we are going to be hand placing you based on where we might have spaces pop up in the system after those standard contract folks have formed roommate pairs, found their places, all those types of things. So the great news about a conditional contract is you still have a housing contract on campus. Again, Nikki, Chelsea, and their team do a fantastic job of trying to place you to the best of their ability in spaces that you want. But we just know that we might have spaces in one area, and so that's where we'll have to hand place folks in that area. So, you know, I know there's a lot to kind of take in about the contract process, but, you know, overall, I think hopefully you can get good information again from watching this video. You can, this will be posted on our website as well, so you can always go back and re-listen to some of the things that we said as well. We've got a couple real specific questions that came in, Nikki. So will LLC residents, for example, Mosaico, have priority for second year at the same time, at the same or different LLC, or is the LLC a lottery system as well?
Sure. So the LLC process is not a lottery. It is an application process. And so the students who are applying to return will be logging onto the StarRes portal, and they will go back into the LLP returner process that they'll see in the StarRes portal, and they will answer questions and they will submit. Each program functions a little bit differently in terms of the kinds of questions that they ask and any additional submissions that they may ask for in terms of like art pieces or other sort of thought-provoking things that make sense for that particular program. And so the student will follow that process. And so it's not a lottery because they are giving direct responses to what the program is asking them. And then the program staff are evaluating those responses and making offers based on that. And so kind of a little bit to what we spoke to earlier, you know, our students who are really engaging in that community and are passionate about it and are making those great connections and really show a strong commitment to returning to the community, that's not really something that I think the program directors have to think too hard about, that those are the kind of folks that they want to have in their community. I think the students who are not engaging and who are, you know, sort of just clearly there because they just want a housing contract, that's not to say that they won't get one, because, you know, the whole program directors are like, we can work with them and we can bring them back and we can have a strong community with them. But I think it, you know, everyone's human and I am too. And so I would have questions about, you know, do I want to have this person return to the community who's not engaged and who's not coming back over this person who's asking to join us, who's super excited about it and has all these amazing ideas? And so I think there is some balance at play here of how engaged your student is in the community and the depth and the strength of their application. This is where they have a lot of control over how their fate and what they've chosen to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit different version of that question, but can a student apply to more than one LLP, Nikki, or just
yes. One? Students can apply to up to 3. So it's much like when students arrive for their first year, they can apply to up to 3. They obviously don't need to be a returner to that LLP to apply to it. And even if your student is not in an LLP right now, that does not mean they cannot apply. They should absolutely look at that. They're, you know, if they are super excited about this idea of Studio 72, if they've learned about Meraki and they're like, this is amazing and I really want to be part of that, absolutely, please apply to those. They can apply to up to 3.
Great, thank you. Another specific question, can a student who gets a standard contract choose a roommate who has a conditional contract?
No, folks need to, standard contract holders can only select other standard contract holders to be roommate pairs. And if you sort of think through the logic process of what standard versus conditional means, it becomes kind of clear why. Standard contract holders, we have accounted for that number of spaces can be selected. Conditional, we need to hand place based on what's available. And so if our standard contract holders start pulling in all the conditional contract holders, then other standard contract holders are going to run out of spaces that they can directly select, which defeats the purpose. And so our standard contract holders can choose roommates as long as they hold the same status of standard contract.
Thank you. Nikki, can a second year student be placed with a first year student?
So through the HAP process, the second year student would be selecting their space before the first year student would be able to do so, because our standard contract holders will go before our first year students, generally speaking. And so that's really not how the process is designed. If there is a compelling reason that your student feels they want to live with the first year student, have them reach out to us and we can discuss it. I don't want to give a hard yes or no. I would say that it's not something we typically do for a variety of reasons. But we are reasonable human beings who like to hear what folks have to say. So if you feel really strongly about it, reach out to us and we'll discuss it. Although I would be prepared for that not to work out.
Yeah, and that really is a timing issue. So, and I think maybe one of the things we didn't explain as well. So, for those standard contract folks that are issued a contract, you're going to get to select your space before we start turning those processes on for our first year students. So that's why that doesn't match up as well. But still a good question. So. I think our questions are starting to wind down a little bit here. And so I'll say a couple things here, and then we'll wait and see if any last minute questions come in, but otherwise we may wrap up here quickly. So, we talked a little bit about our CID space on campus. So again, 596 beds on the western edge of campus. Eastern edge of campus near downtown Blacksburg. It's going to be a fantastic space we're very excited about. So definitely something that you should check out, and that information is on our website, and you can see some of the great layouts for that. Some of the things that we have been hearing about with students wanting to find new spaces that they can spend time with each other in the age of COVID. Virginia Tech, and specifically student engagement and campus life, as well as housing and residence life, is partnering on a new outdoor programming space that is actually going to take place on the Dietrich lawn. So that is between Pritchard and Ambler Johnston, Washington Street, and D2 dining hall. And so it's kind of surrounded there. That'll be an outdoor programming venue, as well as kind of a patio area. So kind of think Adirondack chairs and lights and string lights and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be a great project. We are still working on that, but we're quite close to getting that done. So it'll be ADA accessible. So it's not quite as easy as just throwing down some chairs on the grass and calling it a day. So there's some pieces that we need to do to execute that well for all of our students. But I do expect that that's going to happen here within the next 2 weeks. We'll have that space. Let's see, maybe final question, Nikki, that I'll pitch to you is, are there any kind of other frequently asked housing questions or issues you've seen with second year housing that you want to put in front of folks?
Yeah, that is a great question. I do think a lot of times our returning students do feel that pressure to make a decision right now because they're hearing about folks who are signing leases off campus, and I definitely can understand that and respect that. I do think it's worth sort of taking a breath or two and thinking about what kind of experience do you really want for your upcoming year, and which space can best provide that before you rush into a decision. I just don't want folks to feel pressure to make a decision right now. I think you've got more time than it may feel like. And so I think that is kind of often the case for folks, that they feel pressure to make a decision, even if it's not right now, if it's later in the year. And so I just want to kind of remind folks that you often have a little more time than you think. It's okay to step back and make a more thorough assessment of what's best for you before you sign anything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Nikki. And I'll just add in on that. If there's one issue with second year housing, it's that students don't fill it out on time. And again, that's a small minority of folks, but the biggest thing that would hurt your chances for housing is just choosing not to engage in one of the two processes. So again, either the LLC process or the HAP process, and then you submit your application late. That's going to be the least likely that you'll end up having a space on campus. And in that situation, even if you were to get a space, it's definitely going to be a conditional space at that point. And so that'll be kind of a hand pick. So, okay, just one last question, and then we are going to wrap things up here. So, Nikki, are the LLC applications reviewed independently from other LLP applications? So, i.e., if students applied to multiple, are they all going to know that the student applied to a bunch of different ones, or how's that going to work?
So no, each program is only reviewing what's in front of them. And so a student could get, if they apply to 3 programs, they could get 3 offers. And they could get, let's say you apply to West Ambler Johnson, to Meraki, and to Ujima. You could get yeses from all 3. And then that would be, the student would need to determine which of these am I most interested in and want to accept, and then they can decline the other 2. So no, the program directors are looking at what's in front of them, and they are looking for to create the best community that they can. I do want to take a quick moment to echo Sean's point. Everything that we do has a deadline. There's a deadline to apply. There's a deadline to accept an offer. There's a deadline to sign a contract. We will communicate those deadlines in all of our emails that go out. It is incredibly important that students read those emails carefully and thoroughly and follow all the steps. We will do everything that we can to assist you when you work within our deadlines, but our deadlines exist for a reason. And so it becomes incredibly hard for us to continue working effectively with folks once we're past those deadlines, because it starts to spill over into affecting other students and other processes. And so it is super important to pay careful and close attention to those.
Yeah, could not emphasize that enough. Reading and responding and taking action to your Virginia Tech email is the most important part of this process. So as Nikki indicated, our processes are sequential. So we have to finish one before we can start the other. And so, again, even if a situation like an LLP contract that we issue and then a student doesn't actually sign the contract after it happens, then now we're unfortunately in a different process. And now student wouldn't have the opportunity to sign that contract. So we have to have deadlines in order to move things through. All that being said, we want good things for you and your student. We want them to get the contract that they want. So as Nikki indicated, you can apply to multiple LLPs. And so that's a great opportunity to kind of look at some of the things and interest groups that you have here at Virginia Tech. Again, next year, it'll be 19 different communities that you could be a part of in areas throughout campus. And so would just really encourage you to check those things out. So, I want to just say thank you for tuning in today. Thank you to Nikki for sure for answering some fantastic questions for us. Just give a quick wrap up that we've got other fall family weekend sessions coming here. So especially the session on living learning programs as well. And you can check out all of those programs and some of the activities that are happening on our website. So that's housing.vt.edu, and that's /Family Weekend 2020. So housing.vt.edu /Family Weekend 2020. So with that, Nikki and I will sign off. And again, thank you and have a wonderful day and enjoy it.